Hi, everyone, and welcome to Let's Make Some Music podcast. I'm very excited to get this going, and this is officially our first episode. Before we jump in, I want to say a few words about what this podcast is going to be. I haven't figured out the structure entirely, and I think it's going to shape itself naturally over time. But the main idea is to sit with people from different parts of music world and talk about the industry, how things work, how they make a living with music, what's new in the industry, what's changing, what the real stories are behind the scenes. And my main idea is to help other people and inspire them. And I hope that's what this podcast is going to do. So if you are someone who is already in the music industry, or you're trying to get in, or you're just fascinated by the way it works, this podcast is for you. And I couldn't think of a better person to kick this off with. My friend and amazing artist, Callie J. She's known for her sing success, her unique sound, unique voice and style. She's also doing really well on social media. Her songs have been viral on Spotify and Instagram, and there is over 2 million reels created with her music. And she has over 207,000 monthly listeners.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you have probably heard her voice on huge national and global ad campaigns for brands like Pepsi, Coke, Hyundai, Genesis, and also Olympic promo in 2024 and Super Bowl in 2023, which is insane. Yeah, I'm glad we're doing this.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for doing this with me. I'm
Absolutely.
glad we made it. It's been raining in LA for like 3 days straight.
We made
pouring.
it.
I know like people freak out when it rains here. They cancel plans. They don't go anywhere. So I'm glad we're here.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I was actually thinking the other day, I was trying so hard to remember what year we met, but we definitely met at Durango a few years ago. And I think the one we met at was in Denver, Colorado.
Yeah.
And I think it was past COVID.
Probably.
Yeah.
2021?
I think so.
Yeah.
And I remember you were still living in Atlanta and you were planning on moving to LA.
Yeah.
And now you're here doing this full time. So can you walk people through that part of your journey? Like, what were you at in your career when you made that decision? And like, what made you take that leap? And how is LA compared to Atlanta? I've never been, actually.
Yeah. Well, I love Atlanta. My family's still there. So I, try to go back as often as possible and kind of, split my time between Atlanta and LA. But in terms of the career move and everything, I had been gigging for a living in Atlanta. And I was doing, 150 cover gig shows a year, playing, guitar and loop pedal in a bunch of bars and restaurants.
What?
And
I literally did not know that.
Yeah. So I was doing a lot of guitar and, just kind of cover gigs.
Wow.
And then, so that was kind of my source of income. But while I was in college and I got a marketing degree, I also did a music business certificate program on the side. And in that program, they placed me at an internship at a music licensing agency.
What?
So in this internship, I was kind of on the agency side. I was handling the ingestion, like doing all the metadata. I was running the briefs for the supervisors and building playlists to send to them and everything. And it was through that internship, I was like, I think I could write the music for this. I think I could be on the other side. So after I graduated, I decided not to apply to any jobs or anything. Like I knew I wanted to do music. So I continued gigging while I started building up my sync catalog on the side. And that took about a year to get my first placement. And then it took about 3 years to get to the point where I knew I could support myself with sync. And at that point, everyone I was working with was already out in LA. So I kind of figured it'd be worth the move. And it just so happened, I swear this was a miracle, because I'd been building up my sync catalog, while I was gigging for a living. And I had just so happened to decided to play my last gig on January 17th, which was like a week before they shut down everything for COVID.
Right.
So it just so happened that sync became my mainstream of income right before they shut down all gigs because, the restaurants were closed. So I think I got very lucky in that sense. But, sync just kind of kept things going through COVID. And then I waited for the world to open back up again before I moved out here. And I've been out here ever since. Almost, I guess it's been 4 years at this point. Yeah.
Wow. So I met you around 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So probably like
right
end of 2020.
Yeah.
Wow, this is crazy. I love that you said that you didn't apply for any job and you were like pursuing that. And it finally worked you said it took you a year
Yeah.
to get your first placement? Because I feel like a lot of people are doing it on the side while having like a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely taking a lot longer when you're doing it that way.
Definitely. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't know you were like gigging live full
So
time.
it feels
That's
like a
crazy.
lifetime ago. Yeah, that was fun.
Wow. What do you like better? Do you like performing live better, or you're enjoying sync more?
I definitely enjoy sync more for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoyed gigging, and that was a fun chapter of life. I did that for 7 years, but nothing beats kind of getting to work from home and write songs in your PJs or go to
I remember you told me that.
Yeah,
I'm like, wow, that's
just go to a
crazy.
producer's house and you know, we're all friends in this industry, and so co-writes always just feel like hanging out and everything. So it's a much more chill environment, and also not having to lug gear and a whole PA system everywhere I go.
Did you do it yourself?
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah, that was a grind.
wow,
It was fun.
Yeah, I was doing it with a friend of mine, with Vlad. I think you met him.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, like, I'm not going to be able to do it by myself because it's just a lot of gear. It's so heavy. It's such a challenge to like set it up and load it and unload it. Yeah. Anyways, I want to talk about your sound because I feel like you have a very recognizable and like unique voice and sound. I was actually playing a track of mine for a producer that we wrote. We wrote it for an ad, and he was like, yeah, sounds great, awesome, but do you know how competitive and saturated that market is? And he was like, the ad market is one of the most saturated markets in the industry. And I think he's right. And it actually made me think of you because I feel like you stand out in this like super crowded lane. And I feel like your sound is so recognizable and unique. I always like watch ads and like TV shows, and I always recognize your voice. And I signed with a couple sync agencies, and they have your tracks on the reference playlist.
Oh, cool.
Along with like Bruno Mars, Lady Gaga, Billie Eilish, and like Sophie
I
Tucker.
don't mind being on the list with them.
So yeah, my question is, how did you like figure out your sound? Did you know exactly that that's what you want to do and that's the sound you're like aiming for? Or did you like
not at all
search for it for
that was just all through experimentation and trying different stuff. When I first got into sync, I was targeting more just film and TV.
Yeah.
And when I first got into it, I was doing a much more melodic kind of R&B or pop, just like actual vocal, like melodic vocals and everything. And I was targeting film and TV. And I had done that probably for my first 3 years, 2 to 3 years. And I kind of realized ads were probably where it's at, in my opinion, and what I really wanted to target. But in order to do that, I changed the agencies that I was working with. I changed the producers I was working with. I changed the genre that I was doing, and I changed my vocal delivery because I went from doing a very melodic approach to doing this kind of like sassy talk, half rap kind of spoken delivery, which was very different and I had never done before. And I kind of tried it as a joke in the initial session where I tried that vocal delivery. And that very first song that I tried that vocal delivery on ended up being one of my most successful songs. So
which song was it?
It's an old one now at this point, but it's called Look at Me.
I think I've heard it.
And yeah, that one ended up having a ton of success on the ad side of things. So once that started catching fire, I was like, okay, I think there's something to this sound. And even that has developed over the years, because I think initially when I switched over to that kind of vocal delivery, that was more of like a Sophie Tucker kind of sassy spoken thing. Whereas it's over the last 3 years, it's probably morphed into more of like a hip hop, a slightly more rap leaning delivery.
I was also talking to another friend of mine. He was like, one placement is not a career. 2 placements is not a career. Even like 100 placements is not a career. Sometimes it is. But he was telling me that it's so important to like find your sound and find your lane and just do that. And I feel like it's the best that you can do for your career.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, going off of that, I think when I first got into writing for sync and being a songwriter and going to the conferences like Durango where we met, I didn't quite know how to approach the supervisors, because I was like, I have all these songs and all these different genres. Like, you can come to me for everything. But I found it was, at that point, it just kind of confuses them, because I don't know. They don't know what really to go to you for. And I eventually pivoted to just being like, this is my sound.
Yeah.
If you want this, I'm your girl.
Yeah.
And once I got that foot in the door and really established myself with that song, I've been able to, slowly expand into the other genres that I, enjoy writing and working with. But I found initially it's better to kind of just lead with your best foot forward.
Yeah, for sure. Because I feel like a lot of people are doing the same thing. They're trying different things and they're trying to even listening to people's reels, so many different things. And I feel like people do get confused and they don't know what is that you do.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to remember sometimes, what you're good at. And I don't know.
Yeah, I think sonic branding is important on the artist side and the sync side. Supervisors want to know who are you? What's your brand as a songwriter? So I think it helps.
What was your first big placement that made you think, oh my God, this is crazy, if you remember one?
Well, my very first placement, I lost my mind. I was so excited. And it was literally, this is going to be funny because it was a teen mom placement, which we all know is $500, which is great when you're first getting in the game.
Yeah.
But, I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, I got my first placement. This is the beginning of it all, And I literally got a snippet of the waveform of the song that got placed tattooed on my arm. So
that is so cool.
I was committed. But it's funny that that's a teen mom placement. Details. Anyways.
Oh my God.
But my first larger placement that I was like, oh my gosh, I'm starting to this is starting to be legit, was a Coke placement that I got. And that was my first decent sized budget where I was like, oh, we could actually make some money here. So that was definitely exciting. But I think even then that was after 2 years of placements, maybe, it takes a while. It starts to snowball, but, I think it took me a year to get that first placement. I think I only got 7 placements, from that first one, a year after that first one. And then I think I got 35 the next year. And then I got 75 the next year and then over 100. So it really starts to build.
So it was gradual for you. Yeah, because I was going to ask you, was there a turning point or it was gradual?
It was a gradual thing, but it had a steep incline. So it was kind of interesting to watch that grow in a 2 or 3 year period.
Yeah, because I feel for a lot of people, the beginning of it is kind of random, one placement, then one placement here, 2 placements there, then quiet for a while, then another one.
Yeah. But it really starts to build. So
yay! Yeah. I had 2.
That's awesome. That's exciting.
Anyways, yeah, it's so funny. It happened when I quit my full-time job, and I got my first 2 placements, reality TV shows.
Nice.
Still, yeah, I was freaking out.
What were the shows?
It was Love Is Blind and Selling the OC.
Nice.
And Selling the OC is super nice. It's opening scene. Oh. And it's it's going on for almost a minute.
That's awesome.
So I'm
you can get some streams from that too,
Hopefully, yeah. I think we had over 100 Shazams from the Love Is Blind one, which is nice. Surprising.
Yeah.
All right. I think your career is such a powerful example of building something yourself. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think you were signed to a major record label or you didn't have a manager from the beginning. Mm-hmm. And I feel a lot of people, they're not starting unless they get an artist development deal or a record deal or a manager. And I feel sometimes you have to just do it and start, working on your music and have to start putting music out and growing your audience and figure out social media thing and also, just network and collaborate. But I feel a lot of people are waiting for something to get started. So what's your take on it? What would you tell someone who's not moving because they don't have a manager or a record label or
Well, I'm pretty fiercely independent in terms of how I view the industry. I've never really wanted a pub deal or a label deal or, a manager. that could just be because I'm a control freak and I want to micromanage every aspect of my career. But, I'm also of the opinion that like no one's going to work as hard for your music as you will. They don't have as much skin in the game. So I think if you want to do something with your career, you have to go out and get it. Also, one of my favorite quotes is, if you treat it like a hobby, it'll pay like a hobby.
Oh my God, so true.
So my whole family has always been very supportive of me pursuing music and being a songwriter. But my dad always, really reinforced with me that like, okay, if you're going to do this, you need to treat it like a 9-to-5. And you need to go out there and you need to like pound the pavement. You need to send cold emails. You need to like, reach out and make connections and go to these conferences, and like, you got to make it happen. So that's just always kind of been my approach. And that was how I got gigs back in the day, just like walking in and asking to speak to the manager.
So
and
cool.
that's how I got into my first few sync agencies. Was I literally just Googled like, top 100 sync agencies. And then I went through and scoured their websites to find out, what kind of music did they specialize in? Were they film and TV, or were they ads, or were they just instrumentals, or did they do vocals? And then, after narrowing down that list, I cold emailed, 30 agencies and heard back from like 2, but that's
Which is pretty good.
Yeah, but that's what initially kind of got me in the door. And I've just always been an advocate for being an independent artist. And also, I feel like times have changed a lot in terms of, like label deals, because it used to be they'd sign an artist and really develop them. But I feel like now they're like, well, you need to have an established, social media presence, and you need to have X amount of streams for us to even consider you. But I think my opinion is like, okay, well, if I've built this myself, why would I then give you a piece after I've built it and I got this thing running and working on my own? Why would I give you a piece now? So
yeah,
even then I'm like, what do you have to offer me? You know what I mean? Which might be a unusual perspective from the industry. I know a lot of people, and there are benefits to having managers and publishers and whatever, but particularly in sync, I just think if you can get it running on your own, you're far better off.
Yeah, definitely. Also, like another thing that I've heard, a lot of people who get signed to who get like a major label deal and they get signed with them. A lot of people get like shelved, so
That's my biggest fear.
They're not doing anything and they're just staying signed. Nothing is happening, and they're like, I've literally talked to like a few bands who were in this situation, and I'm like, that is just so scary. And another thing someone said that I remember, like I've heard it a few years ago, and they said, always remember, a person who signs you and promises you the world can get fired the next day.
Terrifying.
And I'm like, that is so true.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I feel like that's the best way to go. What do you think about non-exclusive deals for like songs?
So I also have an unpopular opinion about that, but it's just what's worked for me. And I did try both approaches at the beginning of my career. I would say for the first 3 years, I would send half my catalog and sign that exclusively with agencies, and then I would pitch the other half non-exclusively. And year after year, the non-exclusive would outperform the exclusive by like tenfold. Like non-exclusive was hands down much more successful in terms of getting placements. And I know people will try to convince artists and songwriters that, and it makes sense in theory, but they try to convince us that, oh, we can get a higher price for your song, licensing wise, if it's just in this one place, because this is the only place they can get it, so we can charge more. And I understand that there's like a scarcity, supply and demand thing there. But in my experience, after testing and comparing the two for 3 years, I was getting much larger placements with my non-exclusive songs compared to the exclusive songs. So I think the agencies tell you that, but I haven't seen that play out in practice. And also, we're all trying to make a living with these songs. So it's my opinion and experience that if you cast a wide net and you throw these songs into, 5, 6, 7 10 different non-exclusive agencies, that exposes them to more opportunities because different agencies have different clients that they work with, different ad agencies, whatever. So it just exposes your songs to more opportunities and hopefully gets you more placements.
Yeah, I think at Durango, I've heard from someone like, what if like two agencies like offer the same song to the same client? And I'm like, so what? How often does this even happen?
That's been such a rare occurrence for me. I've had over 500 placements, and that's been an issue maybe 3 times.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 3 times over like 7 years.
Wow.
So it's pretty rare. And even in those instances, like it got worked out very quickly, very easily. And, we just kept working from there. So they say that's an issue, but I also have not really found that to be the case. So,
yeah. What do you think is the most underrated advice when it comes to like building your career in like either the artist thing or the sync thing that no one's like talking about, if there is one?
Underrated advice? Yeah, probably the non-exclusive.
Yeah.
I feel like, most of us are told to go the exclusive route. And I think that is, I think that's it's bad info that a lot of the agencies try to tell us. But that's because it works to their benefit. It doesn't work to our benefit. So I think, stay non-exclusive.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of agencies do non-exclusive though. I signed with 2 recently and both of them are non-exclusive.
Which is great. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes. I'm curious, how many sessions a week do you usually do?
I'm honestly like not a ton. I do probably 2 to 3.
Oh wow.
But even that, like, ebbs and flows. And it's not like a constant thing. Like there will be weeks or a week where I don't have any sessions. And then the next week I have, 4 or 5. So I'm not great at spacing them out, but I think on average it works out to like 2 to 3.
Yeah. So have you been to Nashville?
I have. It's definitely been a minute. I would drive up there every now and then when I lived in Georgia, just because it was only like a 4-hour drive.
Yeah.
And Nashville was fun, but I think they've grown a lot in the sync space since I've been there. I think they were still kind of new to the sync space, so it was a little hard for me to get in rooms there at that point because that was pre-COVID. That was probably 2017, 2018. So I haven't been back since. I need to go, but I think LA has been more of a hub for sync. I think Nashville has grown since then, but I need to go back out there.
Yeah, I've heard like crazy stories, like people do like 3 sessions a day there. Like,
I could never.
How can you do that?
Could never. No, my brain, even if I hit 4 sessions in a week, I'm like, my brain can't handle this.
Really?
Like,
yeah. Well, can you imagine doing like 3 per day or like 2?
No,
I can.
No. Yeah. That's not my speed.
Yeah. Because I was talking to someone at Durango and they're like, you should come to Nashville. We're going to like put you in a bunch of rooms. We're going to do like 3 sessions a day. And I'm like, I'm okay.
It's also interesting how like the session culture is different out there versus here.
Oh, yeah?
Because I feel like we start later out here, like maybe around noon or 1 in LA. But I think in Nashville, they start like 10 or 11 and they work for a little bit. And then they typically go out for like lunch or something and hang out. And then they come back and finish the song, which I think it's interesting that like session culture is kind of different between the 2 cities.
Yeah. I've never thought about it. I want to go. I've never been.
Yeah, it's fun.
Go. But I'll probably do like 1 session a day max.
Yeah.
If I go there.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you about lyrics and writing process. I was in a session maybe like a year ago. It was at a conference in Chicago. And it was one of those things when like they put you in the room with people that you've never worked with before and you've never seen before. So you literally like, you meet them and then you work with them and you have like 4 to 5 hours to finish the track and then you have to show it to a music supervisor. It was one of those situations. And I remember it was 4 of us. And you know how it is to work with new people, especially like under pressure that you have to like have finished product at the end. And I remember like everyone was stressing out and kind of like freaking out. And I remember the producer that was in the room, he like in the midst of us stressing out, he looked at us and he went, look, nothing has to make sense. Let's just vibe, have fun, and it's going to be great. And he was right. And it was great. It was one of the best sessions that I've ever had.
Yeah.
And it shifted my perspective on like writing, because I feel like before that, I was always like thinking about these small things and everything had to make perfect sense and everything had to be like super logical. But after that session, it was literally like I changed. I'm like, maybe it doesn't have to make that much sense.
Yeah.
So what's your like, what do you think about that? What's your like, where is the line between sense and vibe? And like, maybe vibes matter more sometimes.
Yeah. I think it depends on what you're aiming for in the session. I think maybe if you're going for like an artist cut or your artist project or whatever, you might be a little more precious about, does this make sense? Does the storyline line up? You know, and even in specific genres like country, where like storyline is so important, you know, that probably makes more sense and is more important in those cases. But I think for sync, particularly, very heavily just driven by vibe, and you don't need to overthink it a ton. You just kind of have like the general concept, and then you just gotta make it sound cool.
I know.
And just kind of vibe it out.
Yeah. And that actually was like the first placement that we got with that song.
Nice.
That doesn't really make any sense, but it's a vibe.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think as creatives, we tend to overthink what we're creating. And that can often, I think kind of close us off to what we could create if we just kind of just like vibe and just be like, let's just create something that like feels good. And, you know, it's just a different approach to the creative process. But I do know as creatives, we generally try to overthink. So it's good to try to shut that off every now and then. Yeah.
I remember when I was still living in Russia, the song came out, Scars to Your Beautiful by Alessia Cara. And I remember I didn't really speak English back then, but I was like, you know, trying to translate lyrics and, you know, trying to understand. And I couldn't understand what that meant. And I literally like 3 weeks ago, I was at and I forgot about it. And then 3 weeks ago, I was at a session and we were like talking about it. And I was like, oh, do you know the song? And they were like, yeah. I'm like, so what does it mean? No scars to your beautiful.
Yeah.
And they said it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
I'm like, it just sounds nice. They just liked how it sounds and they just rolled with it.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, that song made people feel stuff, even though maybe, you know, it didn't necessarily make sense word for word, but it still evoked a feeling out of the audience. And that's why it was still so powerful.
That song was so big. I feel like it was like everywhere.
Yeah. No, it was huge.
Yeah. I had a vacation in Greece back then and it was like there. It was everywhere.
Yeah.
So we all have like our core collaborators that we work with all the time. How important do you think it is to work with new people?
I mean, I'm always open to try like working with new people, like absolutely, because you never know when you're going to find your next like core person, core collaborator. But I think there's a balance with, like you said, like once you find your crew and you have something that's working and getting placements and stuff, like, you know, I also kind of not guard that, but it's just like, let's roll. We don't need to, you know, don't fix it if it isn't broken. So I think there's a balance between, you know, working with new people and getting new creative insights and stuff versus the crew. But yeah, definitely have a core crew that we all work with.
It's always good to work with people who you trust and who you know it's going to be good with.
Yeah.
That leads to my next question. Have you ever like immediately realized that something was going to be like a one-time collaboration?
Yeah. I mean, I can't think of any like specific examples, but yeah, there's definitely been people I'm like, okay, well, you know, if nothing else, we'll get a cool song and then, you know.
What are like the red flags?
I think it could be, and again, I don't know how to pinpoint this or put it into words, but there have been producers that I've tried working with that for whatever reason, I cannot think of rhythms or top lines over their tracks. And I don't know why that is. I don't know what's different. I don't know what they're doing differently than like producers that I work with, or if that was just my mentality that day. I just like didn't have any ideas. But
Mm-hmm.
there have been a couple of producers over the years that I've tried to work with multiple times, and every time
Oh yeah.
I've like heard a track, I'm like, I got nothing for this one, you know? And maybe that's a me thing or whatever, or our creative processes just like didn't work. The way we approach music didn't work. But yeah, in those cases, it's just like, okay, well, we're going to, I guess, hammer out a song today, but I don't really know what's going to come from here, you know?
It's good that you try it a few times just to make sure it's not clicking.
Yeah.
I was in a session with one of my main like core collaborators that I work with all the time, and it was like with a new producer, and same thing, like it's just for some reason it was so weird and I couldn't like put my finger on it. I was like, is it me or like I'm not quite sure what's going on.
I don't know what causes that.
And you know, you can't obviously like say anything. And I remember we were like there for like 4 hours, and we got in the car and she looked at me and she's like, what the fuck was that? I'm like, thank you.
Well, I'm glad it's not just me. Yeah, that's good.
It was so funny. I'm like, thank God.
It's like a universal top liner experience, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
If someone wants to step into sync, like right now, let's say in 2026, what should they do and what should they not do?
Well, do we want to factor in AI into the situation? Or, I mean, that's a tough question. I do think it would probably be, it's definitely harder to get into the sync world now than it was, say, like 5 years ago. One, because it's, you know, even more saturated. I do think there was maybe a lot of people jumping into the game during COVID just because there wasn't anything else to do, and that makes sense. And I think a lot of them did realize how hard it is to actually have like an income, you know, coming from sync. So I think some have pulled out of the industry since then. But I know, you know, still publishers and labels are wanting to get into the game because they're realizing this is still one of the last few areas where you can like make money. So there is a lot of saturation. There's, you know, very competitive. So if someone is trying to get into the game now, I would recommend finding your specific sound, you know, that you can really like get your foot in the door with agencies. I would cold email agencies. I would go to conferences like the Durango Conference, Hawaii Songwriters Festival, the Taxi Road Rally. There's a ton of different ones, but great for networking and also meeting agencies and stuff. And then you got to write. You know, you gotta build a catalog. You know, the general rule of thumb is you make 80% of your income from 20% of your catalog, because you never know when a song is actually going to like really hit and start generating multiple placements. So I don't want to say it's a quantity over quality situation, but you definitely need to have some quantity going in terms of how many songs you have in your catalog. So if you can do one a week, that's great. I mean, if you could do 2 a month, that's a good start, but one a week I think is a good challenge for people to build their catalogs. And then definitely recommend the non-exclusive approach. And yeah, just keep working, learn to ride the waves. There's always, you know, as being self-employed and independent artist, you're going to have great months, and then you're going to have very quiet months, and you're, oh my gosh, is everything falling apart? And moments of severe self-doubt. But you got to be able to ride the waves and enjoy the process and enjoy the game, and just keep your head down and keep working.
Yeah. So. Hypothetically, if you were to start from zero tomorrow, what would you do? What would you focus on for like the first 6 months if you were to start from scratch?
Okay. If I was to start from scratch, knowing what I know now, I would probably just go after targeting ads right from the start. Whereas like when I was first starting my journey, I initially started with film and TV. So I would cut that out, immediately focus on ads. I would also probably cut out experimenting with exclusive. I would just go straight, you know, non-exclusive from the start. in terms of like the artist thing, or, pursuing sync, I would still 100% just pursue sync. I initially pursued sync because I didn't want to be an artist, I just wanted to be this like faceless music playing in the back of the ad. I didn't really want to have a social media presence and all that stuff and tour. The thought of that is terrifying to me. And honestly, podcasts are a little scary too, being in front of a camera.
You're doing great.
But no, I got into sync really because I didn't want to be an artist. But it's interesting how that has changed and developed over the years with, the sync industry, because it used to be you could be a faceless, name and have a great career in sync. But more and more, they're wanting established artists and they want their music to also work for sync. So it is, unfortunately, a part of the game now that you really do have to have a social media presence and be active on Instagram and have songs being released on Spotify and all of that stuff, and just, be active and have a presence. So even though I got into it not wanting to be an artist, I have somehow become an artist, and I don't hate it. It's fun. I do love, it's just another creative outlet in terms of, we write music for a living, and sonically we're very creative, and this gives us a visual outlet in terms of, visual creativity. And I've been releasing a song on Spotify every 28 days for the last 3 years. And that's been a really interesting journey to see how that has played out. Yeah, it's definitely
right there.
Definitely been a journey. But also very rewarding to see how that has paid off. And I would also really recommend that to people on the artist side or the sync side. Like if you have the catalog to back it up, I would highly recommend doing a release on Spotify every 28 days, because it's been really interesting watching, I don't want to call it a Spotify hack, but the release radar is every 28 days. So it pushes a song for 28 days and then it falls off. So if you have another song teed up 28 days later, boom, 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 you're not wasting any time. You're like instantly just like throwing a new song into the mix. And when I started that 3 years ago, I had like 30,000 monthly listeners. And now, as of today, I have like 207,000 monthly listeners. So it's actually been growing a lot. And I think that's been a very like worthwhile challenge, we'll call it. But very,
I was doing math here. So you like put out 36 songs.
Yeah.
That's a lot of songs.
A lot of songs.
Crazy.
But yeah, it's kind of interesting watching that grow on Spotify.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you don't like do a bunch of promotions, so it's just the algorithm pushes you.
I do like zero promotion. Wow, I might, post on Instagram or something, but I'm not really putting any paid ads behind it. I'm not sweating over the artwork or the promotions or anything. I literally just kind of cook up the artwork on Canva and just kind of use their templates or, and adjust it to whatever, change the color scheme, add something. But I love Canva for artwork, spend an hour on that and set up the release. So it's like, I don't overthink it a ton, mainly because it is such a numbers game. I just like simply don't have the time to devote to like every release, because 4 weeks later there's another one. So just try not to be too precious about it and just get the content out there. Because at the end of the day, I feel like we've all heard stories about how like big artists that we all know and love, they have these songs that are so precious to them and they love, and like, but it's not the ones that get really big for them. Like they're big songs, or they're like, this is the song I have to sing for the next 20 years. Like this is the song that the public loves.
That's so funny.
So in my opinion, I'm like, just get your content out there and the public will decide what is the next big song, because we have our songs that we love, and then there's the songs that the public loves. So you just got to get the content out there.
I feel like there is this contradiction around the music industry. So I feel like we all know that there are people out there who are making a real living with music. And there's a lot of people like that, either like they're artists or they are like doing something on the like business side of things. But also, I've heard from a lot of people multiple times, like, if you want to make a lot of money, choose another career. And I'm like, how does that make any sense? Is it just because it takes time to see results? But I feel like it's about you can say that about any industry and about anything. Or like, why do you think people say that? Because I feel like I thought about it a lot, and I feel like people do it all the time, and it's so contradicting.
Yeah, I think there's two factors to that. One, I think we grow up in a society and a culture where we're told, oh, you need to grow up and be like a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. Like those are the jobs that pay. So I think that's just naturally ingrained in everyone. And, there's the saying, the starving artist. You got the doctors, the lawyers, and the starving artist. Yeah. So I think everyone just has that ingrained in them. So without even knowing really the possibilities that exist out there, they're like, well, if you want to make money, you got to go do something else because there's no money in music. Yeah. So I think that's just a cultural thing, a societal thing. But even on the industry side, I think it depends on how you approach it too. And I think a lot of people think, oh, I have to be like the next Taylor Swift or Beyonce to like really make a living in the music industry. And they don't understand that there's so many jobs and positions within the industry that have, they produce great livings, and you don't need to be Beyonce or Taylor Swift to make a living being a creative. So I think there's just a lot of opportunities that people don't really know about, and that's probably why they have that perspective. But it can definitely be done. A lot of people do it. I think you just got to be able to be strategic about it and approach the game with a business mindset. Which I do think a lot of creatives could maybe use a little boost in the business side of things, because those are two contradicting sides. I think, to be a creative and also be very business minded. Yeah. It's very difficult or a little more rare to come across people that possess both of those. But I think if you're able to walk that line and tailor your music to a market and understand the business side of it, that can be a very lucrative position to play.
Yeah, a lot of artists are like, oh, I don't want to do that business side. Like, I want to make music and that's it. And I'm like, I don't think it's going to work.
It's important. I would argue the business side is even more important, because you can have the greatest song in the world, but if you don't know how to market it and get it out there and also just rep your music and be able to read the contracts so that your music doesn't get tied up in terrible deals. You could have the greatest song in the world, but unless you know the other half of the equation, it's probably not going to go anywhere. So you kind of you need both sides.
Another thing that we wanted to talk about was AI. And I think you asked me, like, do you want to touch on AI? So what do you think about AI? And yeah, I've heard like from multiple people, oh, like AI is going to take over and very soon, like a lot of people won't have jobs. And I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think that's going to be the situation in the music business. I feel like it's just, I don't see it happening, but I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. I tend to be a little more on the doom and gloom side of that, but I also realize there's a lot of liability in terms of AI. I know, like on the sync side, a lot of ad agencies and companies don't want to touch anything that's remotely AI because they don't know where that AI is getting its music that it's interpolating from. Yeah. So ad agencies, they won't touch it because there's too much liability there. So that works to our benefit. Real artists, real music. And I hope it stays that way. Yeah. But, this is, new technology is introduced all the time. And, we go from analog to, needing to play everything perfect to a lot of now like in the box production in DAWs like Pro Tools and Logic. So, production in music and how we create has evolved over the years. And I think best case scenario, AI just becomes another creative tool that we can pull from for ideas and inspiration and everything. But it'll be really interesting to see what plays out. And I hope. I hope it.
No, I feel like when it comes to sync, like I was signing some contract the other day and it literally had that clause saying like, to the best of my knowledge, I did not use any AI in my work. Yeah. So like you literally can't do it. And I feel like, I don't know, it's like a lot of even bigger artists, that's how they create, they get together in the studio and they right, and that's the whole point.
Yeah.
So no one will want to replace that with like.
Yeah. And maybe it'll just end up being like a fad in the creative industries too, because I know labels are signing like AI artists that have a visual look and 100% AI music, and
I didn't know
labels are
that.
signing them. But I don't know how easy it'll be for those artists to get a real fan base, because as AI, they can't really like pull from the human experience. And I feel like it's going to be, I feel like the audience is going to be able to tell that, you know, that this isn't music written by a human with a human experience, and they won't connect with that music quite as much. But labels are trying it, but you know, they're going to do anything to try to, you know, make a buck. But hopefully that fails for them. So.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Okay. What are you excited about right now? What are you working on? What's next for you?
Well, two things I guess I'm exploring right now. One is I'm kind of playing with K-pop a little bit and getting into that world, which is exciting. I think that music kind of runs a little adjacent to ad music specifically. Just very like loud and upbeat and energetic, a lot of different sections. So I think there's some crossover there. So that's fun. I've been doing some sessions in K-pop and trying to build that up a little bit. And then on the social media side, I've been experimenting with a new branding, which has been very interesting to see how that's been playing out. Because just like when I started Sync and I had started initially targeting film and TV, and I was like, this isn't really working for me so much, so I'm going to pivot over to ads and change everything about how I'm doing it. I've kind of taken the same approach to my social media. Because I've been doing content this year. I've been posting reels every Monday, Wednesday, Friday of me, you know, kind of walking and lip syncing to my music and having cool edits over the videos and stuff. And I'd posted that very consistently for 8 months with zero engagement or traction on social media. So I kind of went back to the drawing board and was like, well, that's not connecting with the audience for whatever reason with my music. So what can I change? And I saw we'll call it a character, a costume on TikTok, and the artist actually posted a tutorial on how to make it. So I ended up making this costume for myself.
The white one?
Yes.
I saw it. It looks so cool.
I easily have 100 hours in making that jacket. There's 4,000 grocery bags.
You should post
in this costume.
The process.
I should. Yeah, I should. But I've only been posting this new character, this new brand for the last 3 weeks. But I've gotten over 3,500 new followers. One of the videos is at 2.7 million. Wow. A couple of the other ones are over, 50,000, 100,000 views. And even on TikTok, I have one over 100,000. So it seems like it's starting to get some traction, probably just because it's so bizarre and people have no idea what this character is.
Amazing.
And it's definitely a very sharp left turn from what my other content was. So I'm kind of navigating from a branding perspective what this transition will be and how far do I lean into this new character, and just kind of figuring that out. But it's just interesting, and it's fun. But I think it just goes back to the point of if something isn't working creatively, don't be afraid to just completely switch things up. Because I knew my Spotify had been, kind of steadily growing over the last 3 years. So I knew sonically the brand was working, but visually the brand wasn't working. So, just had to start playing with that and kind of massaging different things. And we'll see where it goes from here. But it's definitely a new look for sure.
Nice.
So,
I was thinking, that's so cool. Like the way you think, because I'm sure a lot of people would be like, oh, it's just not working. It's so cool that you find ways to change it up and try new things. Because I feel like a lot of people struggle with that. It's really hard to step out of the comfort zone and try something new.
Definitely. Yeah. And it's hard to come up with the alternative. Okay, if this isn't working, what do I do from there? And I definitely sat on that for months trying to figure out, okay, well, what do I change here? What do I do? And just a process of you're just experimenting and testing different things. I feel like I've always had a more methodical, strategic approach to how I approach writing and, the industry side of things is like, okay, I'll try something and give it a good run. But if it's not working, you got to pivot over into something else.
Yeah.
Because what's the saying? The doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Yeah.
Definition of insanity. So
I know.
Yeah, just got to switch it up. I know for some artists that can be a little bit harder because, their art is how they express themselves and it's so authentic to them. Whereas I just have known I wanted to create, but I didn't necessarily care how I created. So I've just looked for areas that I could fill. I've looked for missing pockets and I'm like, well, I can fit this part of the market. So I've had a slightly different approach there, but it's definitely been an interesting journey.
Yeah. Circling back to what you said about like a lot of people feel very connected to their art. I feel like sometimes it's good to just put it out and let it just go.
Yeah.
Because it's not yours anymore.
Yeah.
And just put out another thing and like next song, next thing. I feel like when people are too connected to it, it's really hard to like change things and go in a different direction. So
absolutely,
that's a good advice for someone who is like struggling with that. Yeah. I think that's it.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for being here.
So thanks for having me.
Doing it with me. I'm going to leave all of your links in the description of the video. Awesome. So make sure you guys follow Callie and listen to her music and follow her journey. Yeah, thank you so much for doing this.
This was awesome.
Yeah, I'll see you next time. See you in the next episode.